Hi everybody and welcome back to Kevin's Upfront Opinion today. So what I thought I'd do is speak about a news article that's actually in the BBC and it's also been carried by a few of the national newspapers. Okay, and the headline is politicians have given away too much power to deliver pledges, says the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer's ex-aide. And it basically says in the Times, Paul Ovenden, who this is about, who quit as Keir Starmer's Director of Political Strategy last September after offensive messages he had sent in 2017 surfaced and said the British state had got bigger and bigger while simultaneously and systematically emasculating itself. And he also said the case of the British Egyptian activist Alaa Abd al Fattah revealed the sheer weirdness of how Whitehall spends its time. Now, is he correct with what he says? Now, the fundamental thing is there's a few politicians, specifically ex or existing conservative politicians, that have basically said the same thing. That a politician, especially if they're in cabinet at the moment, or potentially future MPs, or people that are MPs at the moment. So I'm talking about reform at the end of the day. Can make all the promises they like, but the reality is, are they actually able to deliver these promises? And the fundamental thing is, they're not. And this is something Liz Truss has spoken about. Okay, whilst being in America, doing podcasts over here, and she's spoken about this. And it's like the reason she got brought down. And whether you think it was right to get rid of Liz Truss or not is actually irrelevant. It doesn't really matter. But as Liz Truss has said herself, all of the things that she said in this mini budget, none of them actually ever happened. And it was the Bank of England that brought her down. Okay. And the Bank of England's not accountable to anybody. Okay. And as she said herself, the person that's responsible for all of this is Tony Blair. Okay. And there hasn't been a cabinet or a prime minister or anybody within that making decisions that's actually really been accountable. So you would either say the early days of Tony Blair, or you're going back to John Major, and before John Major, obviously Margaret Thatcher. So what can be done? Well, if you keep things the way that they are at the moment, and the classic example is when the Conservative Party knew that they were on a hiding and they needed to do something about migration. And obviously, I did a video yesterday about the migration numbers for last year, because you had the Boris wave in 2022, which was like 45,000. Then it went down under Rishi Sunak in 2023, down to 29,000. Then the following year, in 2024, which was at around about 35,000. And then last year, it was at 41,000 and a bit. I can't remember the exact number. Okay. So, is there an argument that they can really do anything? So, if you had the Rwanda deal, that was the classic example. It was Whitehall that did everything to stop that from happening. You know, taking the government to court. You know, if they don't actually agree with it, the people that actually have power is Whitehall. It's not the politicians. You know, politicians, it's like a friend of mine once said, who served in the British military, and he was initially a tank driver, and he served in the war in Iraq. And he said if he was prime minister, he would give everybody that served in the military £1 million. Now, politicians could go and say that, everybody that serves in the military, you automatically, as soon as you come out, well, give you £1 million. It's not going to happen. Okay, but you can promise it, but who's going to stop it? Whitehall. They're the people that are going to stop it. It's like it's said quite often. If you watch any podcast and they're talking about Prime Minister's questions or any question that gets asked, what's the first thing that they go and do? They go and look at their aides. Okay, but because most politicians don't actually know the answers to questions that get asked by the opposition benches or what is actually feasible. And that's the reality of the problem that we are in this country, where politicians do not have any power whatsoever. You know, it's not like, for instance, in America, if Donald Trump decides he wants to do something, as long as he can get it through the houses, okay, it's going to happen pretty much at the end of the day. In the UK, that's just not the case anymore because politicians don't have power. And this is where I see the problem when Nigel Farage says that he's going to stop all illegal migration. They're all going to be sent back. I don't believe him. He can promise what he likes because the fundamental problem he's going to have is Whitehall. That is his biggest problem. All the civil servants, they're going to be fighting against him, and all. Say, for instance, he does a complete whitewash, okay, and has a massive majority. They are going to have to fight against that. Short of them sacking most of them and getting people that believe in his virtual signalling, it's just not going to happen. And I'm sorry to say it, you know, but sometimes in life, you have to be realistic. And this is where the fundamental problem. So when you're talking about Paul Ovenden, he's correct. He's absolutely correct. Because there have been so many MPs and former Prime Ministers that have come out and said the same thing. So let us know in the comments down below what you think. What do you think needs to happen? And is there any way of actually changing it? So let us know in the comments down below. But for now, thanks for watching, and we'll speak to you again a bit later.